about marriage today, and may or may not be a podcast. We'll see. While you're at it, check out my wife's podcast, Rise with Sarah. It's on Spotify and it's on YouTube. And speaking of that, we're talking about marriage today. We just did our brotherhood call for the Men on Fire program. We talked all about marriage today. So it's on my mind. Guys in the group, we're talking about our marriage issues, struggles we're going through, failures we've had, massive successes we've had. And I'm going to take you through two of the points that we discussed. Not that we discussed it. Two of the points that we discussed on our brotherhood call this morning. And that is, the first one would be having difficult conversations with our wife when they need to be had. And the second one is going to be what to do when you and your wife are personally on different paths. You're trying to massively personally develop yourself and the other person's content. You're trying to 10x your income and the other person is content. What do you do? So that's the second half. First half is how do you have difficult conversations? Because this is a hard thing to do for a lot of guys. A lot of guys live in a little bit of fear of having these kind of conversations with their wives because they're afraid of how they're going to react. They're afraid that they're going to get into trouble. Some guys have the relationship with their wives, kind of a son to mom relationship where they keep things inside for a long time that need to be said, and that builds resentment. So for example, if you know that your wife is behaving in a way that is detrimental to the family and you don't say anything, you keep it to yourself, but you think about it every day for years, and then you find yourself when you're 50 years old bitching to your buddies about it at the golf course, you're going to be creating resentment between the two of you, and the crack's going to continue to grow. We all have things that we need to work on. Husbands have things they need to work on. Wives have things they need to work on. And in a healthy relationship, you can call each other out on that in a respectful, loving way to build each other so the other person achieves their best self. I want my wife to achieve her best self. She wants me to achieve my best self. So if she is doing something or acting in a way that I know she could do better, I will tell her that. And if we have a mature relationship, then it's not going to crumble us. It's not going to tear us apart. We can have a conversation. We might even fight a little bit. We might even argue a little bit, but that's okay. We can survive that. So say your spouse is overreacting, being super emotional, and is starting to say things to the kids that are inappropriate. That's when it's a good time to step up and say, take your wife aside and say, hey, we don't talk like that in front of the kids. No, this isn't how our family's going to act. This isn't what we're going to do. Another guy was talking about, his having to have a conversation with his wife about spending money. They want to financially move ahead. They want to move places. They want to start businesses. And her spending habit was out of control. And for many years, he was too afraid to tell her not to. So he just kept on paying the credit card bill, and watching their dream of what they wanted to do for the rest of their life float away. So what's the better thing for him to do? Is it to allow her to do that and not speak his truth, not speak the thing that is actually bothering him? Or should he tell her the truth and have an adult conversation about it? Lay everything out on the table. Say, we're not going to move ahead if you keep on doing this. You're allowed to be angry right now. And for the first example, sometimes your wife is going to behave in a way that's inappropriate. It's going to happen. They're human. We're human. Sometimes I'm going to behave in a way that's inappropriate. We are husbands. We are going to do that as well. And when that happens, you need to tell the other person in a respectful, loving, calm, authoritative, strong, confident way, this isn't how we're going to do things. And then, so we're going to talk about the why, and then we're going to talk about how you have those conversations. So that's coming next, is how you have those conversations without destroying your relationship. I've talked to guy after guy who is very terrified to confront their wife about anything. They are weak in that spot. Their wife does not want them to remain in that spot. A lot of wives are in a situation where they have to be cold, bitter, and masculine to hold their relationship together because this guy, their husband, is living in fear all the time. Fear of them. And maybe it comes from the relationship he had with his mother. Who knows? But because he is constantly scared of this feminine presence in his life, he doesn't say what needs to be said. He never stands up for himself. He never stands up to her. And her bad habits are allowed to grow unchecked. She also turns into someone she doesn't want to be. She turns into the leader of the family, the one responsible for everything. The husband turns into another child. And that husband a lot of the time will say, happy wife, happy life. He'll say, I am being noble. I am doing what my wife wants. Look at me. Aren't I such a good puppy husband? You'll say, oh, look at that. That guy out there is trying to be an alpha male. He's not being a good husband. I'm being a good husband. I do whatever my wife tells me to do. Happy wife, happy life. Meanwhile, the wife is thinking, why don't you for once... Something popped up. The wife is thinking, why don't you for once stand up for yourself? Man, you'd be a lot more attractive and sexy if you did that. Can you stop bending over to me every goddamn confrontation? Can you stop crumbling every time we have an argument and saying, yes, ma'am? And then he goes to the bar with his friends and says what a bitch his wife is. I know lots of guys like that who are very weak in their relationship, say nothing to their wives but yes, and then go to their friends and complain about their wives. Someone does that to me, I just call them out on it. I say, yeah, that's great you're saying it to me. Tell it to your wife. Unless you're too scared to do that. And that's what it is. The happy wife, happy life, I do whatever my wife says thing is a shield against weakness. That's what you say because you think it sounds good. You think it's a shield that protects you from actually having a difficult confrontation or difficult conversation with your wife. Something that needs to be said, needs to be had. Babe, we need to stop spending $3,000 on Amazon every month. I think we'll be okay. We could pay off our student loan debt. We could buy a new house if we stop doing that. She's going to get upset. She might be offended. You will survive. If that happens, that's okay. You can survive in that madness, survive in the chaos. You are going to be okay. But many guys, just from the pure fear of that conversation, will go decades not saying what needs to be said, allowing their lives to crumble. And then once they realize they don't have the balls to say what needs to be said in their relationship, they'll say, oh, I was being a good husband. That sounds a lot better than saying, I just didn't have the balls to stand up to my wife. So they have two choices. They could either say, I was too weak to confront my wife, or I'm being a good husband. So they choose I'm being a good husband. I can either say I'm living the happy wife, happy life mantra, or I don't have the leadership skills necessary to lead my family. It's creating stories to build our own ego up, to cover up the actual flaws we have. Happens all the time. So, we've established that hard conversations need to be had and why guys avoid them sometimes. Now, how do you have that conversation that needs to be had? The difficult one, the family meeting, to say, here's a situation that has come up. A man in the relationship will start working on himself. He'll get himself in shape. He'll go from obese to ripped or athletic, and he's really concerned now about being a good model for his family. So he says, I need to be a good role model for my kids, for my family. I don't want them to be unhealthy. I don't want them to have diabetes. I don't want my kids to die early. I don't want them to have depression, anxiety, and stress. So I need to live a healthy life. And maybe him and his wife have had patterns of eating out pizza, ice cream, drinking every night, and they were just both fat. They were both undisciplined, fat, and sloppy. And that was the life they were both living together. And all of a sudden, the husband decides to change that, and a year goes by. And he notices, hey, my wife isn't doing anything. My wife also isn't making changes. She's continuing on her path, he has to have a conversation with her. He wants to have a conversation with her about, hey, we need to change this. We need to change something that's happening right now, for the betterment of our family. How does he have that conversation? In his mind, it has to happen. He has changed his vision. He has decided that they need to be a good role model for the family. So there has to be a hard talk, a serious conversation between him and the wife. No doubt feelings will get hurt. No doubt people will take offense. No doubt there'll be some silence, maybe some fighting, some anger, some rough words exchanged. But is it worth it to have that conversation? Is it worth it to have the conversation and bring up points that could forever alter the trajectory of your marriage and your kids' lives and their kids' lives? If both you and your wife all of a sudden become disciplined and healthy, would that be better for your children and their children and their children? Because as a teacher, I've seen kids whose parents are obese, they graduate, and they go off to college obese and depressed and stressed out because they got it from their parents. So would it be better for these kids if their parents became disciplined and really healthy and active? Yes, obviously. So the husband realizes that the wife is not on board. He needs to have a hard conversation with her. How do you have that conversation? You don't say, I'm doing this, you should be doing it too. Because guess what? The husband, for decades, you were living a sloppy life. Good for you that for the past year you've decided to change. And some guys, it's only a couple months or weeks they've decided to change, and they say this. That's when you really need to check yourself. You need to have a serious conversation, serious tone. Not passive aggressive, not dancing around the point. Not saying, well, financially, we shouldn't be going out to eat so much, when really you want to say, you're unhealthy, I don't want you to die early, and I don't want our kids to be obese. So you need to have a serious conversation. You need to say, listen, babe, I love you. This might hurt a little bit. And what I'm about to tell you, I'm guilty of as well. I'm also guilty of this because in the past I have lived a sloppy life, so I was a bad role model, but I want us to change. Together, I want us to change. Together, I want us to change our family's legacy. So this is really, really important to me. We need to both be healthy. We have to both be healthy for our family. Right now, there are things you're doing that I don't want our kids to do, and that's going to sting. That's going to hurt. Okay, when you say that, it's going to hurt. Expect that. Say, I still love you, but I also want you to be extremely happy, fulfilled, peaceful, and I want our kids to be that too. So can we together change the way our family eats? Can we both encourage each other and support each other and change and start working out every day? Can we be a healthy family? You say it with authority. You say it like a leader. You don't back down. You don't dance around the point. You say it with love, care, and seriousness. That's how you have these hard conversations. The conversation that I just described was about health. For you, it might be something else. It might be finances. It might be who knows what. But everyone needs to have at some point a hard conversation with their spouse. And the issue that you have to work through is, do I have this conversation now and make this painful, suffer the pain, suffer the discomfort, and for the rest of our lives live a better life? Or do I back down, do I retreat into weakness and allow this cancer to grow? Do I take the chemo right now that's going to really, really damage and hurt me, but in the long run could save me? Or do I just ignore it, cover my face, and allow this cancer to spread throughout our family? That's why you need to have hard conversations with your wife in the appropriate way. Because some guys will say, well, I told my wife. And you say, well, what did you say? You say, well, I told her she was fat and... Okay, obviously that didn't work. Or a lot of times as guys, we say it in such a patronizing way. We can try to instruct people in a very patronizing way that makes them feel down, makes them feel dumb. And that does not come off well either. We have to monitor our tone. We have to be uplifting and build the other person. That doesn't mean it's not going to sting. Doesn't mean they're not going to take offense, but that is the way we have to approach it. The second thing that we're going to talk about is appreciating your differences between you and your wife and how to go about that. And I'll just go back to the exact same example because I hear this a lot, and that is because my program is all about guys rising and getting the best shape of their life, mastering their discipline, getting financially free, and reaching their potential. So that's what the Men of Fire program is about. And guys do that. So if a guy does that and his wife is not in my program because it's a men's only program, then there's going to be disparity there. And I have tons of guys reaching out to me saying, hey, when is your wife going to start a program? When is there going to be a Women of Fire program? It's in the works. It's in the works. Because the men who are in my program see such rapid changes that they want their wife to experience it too. They want their wife to feel that fire as well. I had a guy message me this morning. He said, I've been in the program 3 weeks, and my wife has been noticing such crazy changes in me. She was wondering if there's a program for women. I said, it's in the works. It's in the works. So sometimes the guy will be rising, and the wife is not, because she's living the life she always has. So how do you justify the difference there? What do you do about that? Or here's another example we talked about this morning on our call, just about an hour ago. Sometimes men, we will want to constantly strive for more business growth, more income. You have 10 rental properties. By the end of the year, you want 50. You're making $100,000 a year. By the end of the year, you want 300. You're in a 3-bedroom house right now. 5 years from now, you want to be in a 6-bedroom house. Whatever it is, you want to be promoted. You want to be president of the company. You want whatever the thing is for you. A lot of guys' identity, a lot of us, our identity is tied to our success in business. We feel like we're crushing it. We feel strong. We feel powerful when we close a sale, when we get promoted, whenever we sell a business, whatever it is. We feel great whenever we're doing great at our job or our business. Women, for the most part, tie their identity to the status of the relationship between you and them. So guys get together, they talk about their income, they talk about where they're traveling to, they talk about the cool business thing their buddy's doing. Girls are going to be talking about, hey, how's your husband? What was the date like you just got on? What dates are you going on this weekend? What did he get you for Valentine's Day? And I remember when I quit my job last May, my wife, I'll never forget this, because I was emotional about it, and I was still unsure. You can never be 100% confident. And I was talking to her about it, and she said, babe, I don't care if we're homeless. As long as you're happy, you're fulfilled, you feel at peace, and I'm with you, it doesn't matter to me what happens. She said, I know that's not going to happen. I know you're going to knock it out of the park, but I'm okay. As long as we're okay, I'm okay. That's women in a nutshell. There's another guy in my program this morning who was sharing a similar story, and he said, my wife is giving me a hard time because she keeps on telling me that she just wants more time with me. He said, I bought this second property, and I'm spending a lot of time there trying to renovate it, and I want to have passive income and cash flow. And he's saying, well, I really want, when we're 50, to have a nice source of cash flow. And my wife keeps telling me that I keep on searching out things to replace her, and I'm not spending enough time with her, that I do anything possible to be away from the family. And I said, well, that perfectly describes women and men. You're using the term cash flow as what's important to you. Your wife says she wants time with you as what's important to her. Two differences between men and women right there. For us, a lot of times, it's never enough. A lot of times for our wife, they are content with what they have. Like my wife is content with our house. I want a bigger house. A lot of guys' wives don't really care how much money they're making, as long as it's enough to cover the bills, to where you're safe, That's it. They just want time with you. They want the relationship to grow. They want to be desperately in love with you. But sometimes as guys, it's always, we want the next thing. We want the next thing. We want the next thing. We want more. We want more. We want more. So, here's part of that. Women are also attracted to guys who are like that. Women want a strong leader who's trying to conquer the world. That's what's attractive to a lot of women. They want somebody who's strong, confident, a guy who's going to lead, a guy who's going after things. If I'm complacent, say, yeah, I'm good, I'll kind of sit here for the rest of the day, that wouldn't be very attractive to my wife. So the same thing that women like and are attracted to can also go overboard and can repel us. So us as men and leaders, we have to find that line and walk it carefully. Jim Rohn says, how can you be happy with what you have while striving for what you want? How can you be content with what you have while striving for what you want? It's an important thing to do. Be grateful for what you have while going after your goals and visions in life. It's very important for us men to do that, especially with wives that are very happy with what they have. And as a guy, you should take that as a compliment. Congratulations. You've provided a wife. You've provided a life that your wife is content with. You won. You did what you wanted to do. Aren't you happy? You have a wife who's happy with the life you provided to her. You went down, you slayed the wildebeest, and you gave her a cave, and she's got a place to live, food to eat, kids. She's happy. You did it. And then we say, well, I want more. Well, I want more. Well, I want more. So we have to realize the family is good. You are the one who wants more. So it's okay to want more, but don't let your ambition destroy the family. Don't let your ambition turn you into an asshole. It's good to have ambition, but don't forget what life is about. Great, you went from running one business to 10 businesses by the time you're 60, and you went from a net worth of 100,000 to 50 million. But now your wife hates you and you never see your kids. Did you win anything? No, you lost life. You gained money in the bank but lost everything that matters. So, appreciate your ambition. Women want a guy with ambition. They want you to be wildly successful, but they also want to know that you will always choose them over the business. You will always choose them over wanting more. Another guy in our call this morning said, very successful sales guy. He said, my wife and I had it out 20 times over this same topic. And in the end, it turned out that she thought I was choosing the business over her, and she felt like she wasn't enough. She thought that I was burying myself in the work because she wasn't enough for me. So because she wasn't enough for me, I have to chase what I really want in life and work. And there are some guys like that. There are some people absolutely who do that. I know men, I've talked to many of them on calls, who say their life is not fulfilling enough. Their family life is not fulfilling enough for them. They don't have any connection, so they have to find the meaning in their life in their job. They're failing at family. They're succeeding at business, so they double down on business because that's the thing keeping their fire alive, is making money in an office somewhere away from their wife and kids. Because when they go home, they're just a normal guy. And they don't feel adequate. They don't feel worthy in that role. They don't feel like they're enough in that role. They've created a separation. There's a coldness. There's a tension. There's a lack of communication. There's no warmth between them and their wife and them and their kids. There's no meaning there. So they go home and they feel like a stranger in their own house. So they go to where they're comfortable. They go to where they feel safe. And that's in an office with the boys, meeting with clients, slinging back drinks, having expensive meals, closing deals. They're just an animal on the prowl. They're like a single college guy, but in the business world. So there are 1,000% guys who are like that. And women know that. So this particular wife of a guy in my group thought that her husband was like that, and they had to have many an argument and conversation. He said fight. He said we had 20 or so fights about this until finally she spoke the truth that she was holding on to, and I finally spilled my guts to her, and then things have been completely different since then. So he said they fought 20 times. He compared it to jujitsu. He said it's like rolling with someone for 20 times and finally you figure out their patterns. He described that as a relationship with his wife. And can you just imagine, like, what if you're we had 25 guys on the call this morning. You're one of those 25 guys. It's day one. We have a guy, it's day one for him. He comes in. He's like, isn't this about getting ripped? And his entire marriage is changed by listening to the story of another man. Boom, day one. He's 12 more months to go. 3 times a week we have these calls. This is what happens every single call. We go around, the guys share. It's unbelievable. You can learn. People in my group say they upgrade from therapy coming to my group because you learn things from other men who are above you, who are where you want to go, who have solved these problems, or who are suffering the same way you are, and it changes your life. So back to this guy. He had this conversation with his wife, this fight with his wife. It was nasty. 20 of them. Finally, the truth happened. And now the relationship has changed forever. Now he can guilt-free pursue success in his business because his wife knows that he'll always choose her over the business. Had he said, happy wife, happy life, yes ma'am, told her what she wanted to hear, lied to her, made her feel good and done something different, or just said, yeah, I'm not going to go after success in business and not be a top salesman, he would be resentful, miserable, lying to his wife, and also have a bad relationship with his wife. He would have created a massive battlefield between him and his wife had he been weak and not had these arguments and hard talks with his wife. So having the hard talk with his wife saved their relationship. As we circle back to that. And I'm going to end it there. A lot of times I go off on crazy rants and talk about different subjects. Today's podcast, well, this is good enough to be a podcast. This will be a podcast. Today's live/podcast is all about marriage. There's 2 topics in particular. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Send me a DM anytime you want.